Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Speakeasy Project. I'm Jeremy. It is good to see everybody this morning. Hope that you are having a fantastic. Morning. Glow sticks? We need glow sticks? What do we need glow sticks for? Oh, because of the music. Yeah, sorry. My brain's running slow. It was late night last night. Got the opportunity to take a couple of my kiddos to... Yeah. Sorry, my brain's not operating quite yet. Got a chance to take a couple of my kiddos to go see Luke Combs last night, so that was good. And I'll tell you what, I had not been. You hear about these artists that there's like levels, right? It's like these local artists who play like coffee shops and small bars, right? And they're just there with like a tip jar and praying to God somebody puts money in it, And then like the next level up from that is like a small venue, right? Where they're not really making any money, or like a bar that like, has a door charge, like cover charge. And they're not really making money, or anything crazy, but like people are paying to see them, and that's kind of like next level, right? Yeah. The Celsius is not going to drink itself. Not a sponsor, but they could be. There's like, the cover charge band, right? Then the next level up from that is like doing that quasi-regionally. And then kind of moving up to like actual like concert venues. You think about like those Smaller places like here in Oklahoma City, like we have the Tower Theater, places like that, a few hundred seats or a few hundred people. And then you just kind of keep increasing, concert halls, things like that. And then you think, gosh, when artists start filling out like basketball arenas, like here in Oklahoma City, it's the Paycom Center, where the Thunder play. And you're talking about like 20,000 people. That feels like you've done it, like and I've talked to some really great artists who are like, the first time we sold out like 1,000-seat venue, we felt like we made it. Then there's this whole other echelon of artists, okay, that have to use football stadiums. Friends, I was not prepared. I didn't know it was a thing. Well, I did know it was a thing, but I thought it was like Taylor Swift, and Beyonce, right? So they said Luke Combs was coming. My son is a big Luke Combs fan. His birthday is upcoming this week, so we decided to take him to the Luke Combs concert for his birthday, and they played at Memorial Stadium, where the University of Oklahoma plays, 85,000 seats. Okay, now I will say there was empty seats. Okay, it wasn't just packed to the gills. But there was probably like 85,000 people there. By the time it was all said and done, like all the people in the stadium, and then all the people like down on the field and in the like the pit area, or like general admission stage area, in the suites, like the suites were filled. Like that's just another level. That's insane. Getting out of there was also a nightmare. But it was a great concert. It was a great show. They had to move everything up due to pending weather. So, like Luke Combs wasn't supposed to play till 9 o'clock last night. His opening act was Dierks Bentley, which makes me feel old because Dierks Bentley was like a pretty big name himself, like in the 2000s. And so, I really enjoyed his set. They moved the Luke Combs thing up. I guess, part of the reason they wanted him to play at 9 is because, the lights and everything, they needed it to be dark, right? So some of his set was not. Yeah, and this is like Taylor Swift, and there would be a butt in every single seat, and there would be people begging to get in. So there's like, I guess my brain was just opened up to, and I think I knew this, but it kind of like, I think until you see it, right? Like that's a whole nother level to be able to play like, a venue that big and put butts in seats to where it doesn't feel like, nobody's there. Cause like, I mean, you could put 20,000 people in there and it'd be like crickets, but to put enough butts in seats that like, that's a thing is insane. But then you think about somebody like Taylor Swift who just packs these places to the gills and just absolutely sells them out. And there's, like you're talking about, like 100,000 people. Just that's wild. That is absolutely wild. So it was crazy. I was super impressed with, I hadn't been to a show like that was like in a really, really, really big venue like that. I was curious how they were going to do like, lights and sound and all of those things and, still kind of give that same like, kind of arena vibe or whatever. But they did it, pyrotechnics, the whole nine, lights, lasers. I mean, it was nuts. And then Oklahoma, decided to show out last night a little bit. We had, of course, it's May in Oklahoma, so thunderstorms are pretty regular. Thunderstorms start rolling in toward the end of the show. It starts raining. He's playing fast car in the rain. which was pretty incredible. I compared it kind of to, if you've seen, there's a video floating out there. There's a video out there like probably early 2000s of the Goo Goo Dolls playing Iris in the rain, like in Buffalo, New York or something crazy like that at a music festival. Him playing Fast Car in the Rain last night was unbelievable. He also had some really great things to say about Tracy Chapman, which I thought was super cool. And, but of course, he decides to play Ain't No Love in Oklahoma, which is off the Twister soundtrack. And, that's, that, that set of movies, the original Twister and then Twisters, being the absolute, it's like religion here in Oklahoma. Playing that in the rain with lightning in the background was, I mean, a religious experience, honestly, for Oklahomans. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. We had a good time. Got home safe. Super late. But the kids had a wonderful time. Really good show. Super impressed. Again, I was just like, it just reset my brain as far as like, the level of like what an artist can get to, and you think about somebody like that, he seems like a super chill, humble guy, who just kind of like popped off and then just exploded, I couldn't imagine the feeling of like, I kind of understand it a little bit, but again, like I'm kind of like of that mindset of like, I'm kind of in that mindset of like, I think about like when we were doing like the evangelicalish thing, and we did a live podcast in Nashville, and like a couple hundred people showed up and paid to get in. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy to me. Like that. So you can imagine like what it's like to feel like to go from that place and think, wow, like I've kind of made it. Like the thing I'm doing, this art that I'm creating matters, to like walk into Gaylord Memorial Stadium with like 85,000 people and like just the lights and the, whatever you have to imagine like that's super surreal. So, I can think about it kind of from both directions, but that's just its own level, pretty cool. Yeah, the Goo Goo Dolls. That song, Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, absolute classic. Fantastic song. Tickles my Oklahoma heart because it's got a little mandolin in it, which I think is kind of fun. But then also, the changing time signature. So as a music person, it also kind of like scratches that part of my brain too of like, oh, this is like actual music. It's not, it's not canned, these guys like, they put in some work and they thought about the way this flows and like what it's going to feel like to, go back and forth on time signatures and things like that and like do it well. That's pretty rare for acts like that. And then, but the song just in and of itself, like really good lyrically, really good, sonically. And so, but yeah, there's a really great video floating around of like where they're playing that in the rain. I mean, it is pouring rain and they're playing that song and people are just absolutely just enamored, so similar experience last night when you're in Oklahoma, a stadium that's called the Palace on the Prairie. A lot of history behind that. I'm not an OU fan, but there's a lot of history there. A song specifically about Oklahoma in a place like that with a thunderstorm rolling in. That's like, that's the stuff like magic is made out of. Yeah, I love that too. I love, And I also love really honest musicians. Like I like listening to Dave Grohl talk about how unaware he is of like music theory. You know, like he knows there's like a whole nother level of understanding music and stuff like that, which even makes it that much more impressive that he's had such a long, incredible career with, you know, obviously starting out with Nirvana and then, you know, the Foo Fighters and the career that they've had. But, you know, just listening to like his humility and talking about like, you know, how much more depth musicians have, like that's super cool too. So, all right. Don't want to get too lost in the weeds. Probably am, but happy Mother's Day to those of you who are celebrating. I hope that you have somebody in your world that you have a reason to celebrate today, and that doesn't have to be traditional, right? That can be that coworker that has invested in you and plays that mom role for you. That could be that friend that you're like, wow, you're just really crushing it as a human and on the parenting front. Like, I think one thing that's really important today is that we can zoom out and we can remember that there are, you know, and I think it's the same challenge with Father's Day, right? And unfortunately seems to be a little bit more the case with Father's Day, but I think it's a beautiful day that we can kind of just zoom out and we can go, maybe, you know, I don't know where you're at in your journey, but maybe it's not your mom, maybe it's not, you know, the people that are immediately around you, but just celebrating the moms that are out there doing it well. And so there are still those that deserve to be celebrated today, no matter where you're at on your journey. So I hope that you're able to celebrate those people. And if that is you, by the way, and I know that there are several in this community that is them, thank you. Thank you for being incredible moms and incredible role models and leaders inside of our communities and inside of your family. Extremely grateful for you today. So I would be remiss if we didn't just pause and be thankful for that today. And you know, especially last week as we kind of discussed the values of love and goodness and all of those things. You know, I think that there are moms out there who are setting up some really, really incredible examples of what love truly is. So. All right, we're gonna be actually in Romans chapter 5, kind of expanding on what we were looking at last week. This is awesome. You know, and I think even in that, right? Like, because I've got a lot of friends who have experienced loss in that area of their world, but I think it's almost a really incredible day to reflect on the good, right, and the memories of the good in that, and just to remember how awesome, you know, your mama or the person that you called mom was, if you're in that season. And you know, I'm also really reminded, Moose, this is a good reminder too. You know, I remember in the Gospels, there's this moment where Jesus is saying, you've never seen or heard the Father, but you've seen the Son, and because you've seen the Son, you know the Father. I'm reminded today that there are a lot of great moms out there that I've never met, and Moose, yours being one of them. Not because I ever had the privilege or the opportunity to meet your mom, but because I know you, and because I know what a great human you are, and to know that there was somebody who invested in that. And somebody who had the patience to deal with you plus 10 other people is a hero. Is an absolute hero. Because make no mistake, the Moosicorn, I'm sure, was a handful. As a young, wild Moosicorn. But because I know you, because I know your heart, because I know your passion, because I know your compassion, I feel like I have a good reflection of who this incredible woman was. And I'm thankful for her today as well. So I just want to share that with you. And if that, there are so many others of you in the community, then I'm sure that that's true as well. And so just know I'm grateful for your mom as well. If, she invested into the human you are today. So, all right. Romans chapter 5. I'm going to be looking verses 6 through 8. Kind of continuing on this expansion of this idea of love and what it means. So right before this group of verses, there's this context of we're hemmed in trouble. We face challenging times, but it forges our understanding, and it gives us a good path, and it gives us a good journey. But as it's talking about these things that we face in life, which are so real for so many of us, I love this. I love this set of verses where it reminds us of who Jesus is. It reminds us of the love that Jesus has for us, and so I want to read those. I want to read those verses to you this morning. Romans chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. It says, "Christ arrives right on time to make this happen." In other words, to give us that hope and that power and that love. He didn't and doesn't wait for us to get ready. He presented himself for this sacrificial death when we were too weak and rebellious to do anything to get ourselves ready. And even if we hadn't been so weak, we wouldn't have known what to do anyway. We can understand someone dying for a person worth dying for. And we can understand how someone good and noble could inspire us to selfless sacrifice. But God put his love on the line for us by offering his son in sacrificial death while we were of no use whatever. There is a few things that I see inside of this passage that I want to go over briefly, and I want to be aware of your time this morning, because I know it is a day to celebrate and be around people that you love, so I do want to be cognizant of that, so I'm not going to keep you very long this morning. But what I do want to say is that there's a couple of things inside this passage that I think are so relevant and so real for us, and starting out with the first thing is talking about how Christ arrives right on time. I love this passage for that very reason. it reminds me that I don't have to be I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be put together. I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have all the direction. I don't have to be the perfect person and have all my, all my poop in a group, so to speak, right? I don't have to be that. Christ loves me just the way I am. He loves me just the way I showed up. He loves me right where I'm at. And that is the definition of true love. It is love that has no strings attached. We say it literally every single week, and this is part of where this comes from. That we are loved with no strings attached. And I absolutely adore this idea that, as Eugene Peterson puts Romans chapter 5, verse 6, he says, he didn't and doesn't wait for us to get ready. He doesn't have to wait for us to be ready. The love of Jesus is so pure and holy and righteous and good that it could just take us right where we're at, in the muck, right where we are, in the mess, right where we find ourselves. And it doesn't have to wait for us to dust ourselves off. It doesn't have to wait for us to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. It doesn't have to wait for any of those things. Jesus shows up where we are, right when we need him, just the way he is. And his ways are perfect and higher and holy and good. And therefore, the reality of that is that our knowing him and being his children take us out of the mire and take us out of the clay and take us out of the muck, and it makes us holy and righteous as well. I think there's a beautiful thing here to understand this morning, friends, is that you don't have to do anything to earn the love of Jesus. Your very existence is enough. You earned it just by being who you are. You are worth dying for. You are worth sacrificing for. And so this morning, if you find yourself in the mess, if you find yourself in the chaos, if you find yourself in the turmoil and just the devastation of life, know that just the way you are, the way you are found today, in that very moment, in that very space, you are worth sacrificing for. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of goodness. You are worthy of kindness. You are worthy of holiness and righteousness given to us by the perfect person of Jesus. And he reaches into the mess and makes us something beautiful. Paul goes on to write here, he says, look, we were far too weak and rebellious. There's a reason that, I have friends who, they are Navy rescue divers. Okay. I have a buddy and adjacently kind of a couple of his friends. They are Navy rescue divers. Military guys, but kind of a completely different game, right? Their job is civilians, other military people who are in desperate situations in the water, most of the time in like an ocean setting, who are in extreme danger, right? It's really interesting to talk to them and how they go about bringing people out of those moments. Some of their tactics may sound counterintuitive. But I'm reminded of this passage when I think about those conversations. We were too weak and rebellious. the way we were found. We were too weak and rebellious. We were trying to do it our own way. We were trying to figure it out for ourselves. We we didn't have the strength to fix it. We didn't have the strength to navigate out of it. We didn't have the strength to get out of the situation. But by golly, we were going to do whatever we thought was best in that moment. We're not thinking clearly. We're not thinking straightforward. We're not coming up with good solutions. We're just coming up with solutions. And those are not good ones. I remember my buddy telling me about one time, like they are rescuing some people had overturned like a sailboat, like off the coast of North Carolina. And they were, they were fast roping down and then dropping a basket. And they were going to get these people out of the ocean who were surely going to drown. And so they fast roped down there and they said, the first thing you have to do is you have to realize like, these people are so discombobulated because they're so scared and they're in so much trauma and they don't realize what's happening and they don't know who you are and they don't know anything about it. Like they are so out of whack that they will begin to fight you because their fight or flight has kicked in and they are in fight. And so they don't have the common sense and the awareness to realize that you are there to save them and to just listen, to shut up, to stop flailing, and just let them do their thing. And he said, so often we'll get into these spaces and these people will begin to fight us. They'll begin to throw hands. They'll begin, like flail and kick and slap and scratch and like, I'm here to save you. I'm here to get you out of a really bad situation that's going to cost you your life. But they don't have the mental awareness because they're in such a state of trauma. He said the first thing that we do, and this is wild, the first thing that we do when somebody is in that situation is we punch them in the face and try to knock them out. Because you're easier to deal with if you're unconscious. You're not going to kick, bite, scratch, claw, punch, drown yourself, drown me. And that was his thing. Because these people can get so out of control, they'll pull both of us down. And then not only are they going to drown, but then I'm also going to drown. And so the best thing that we can do if somebody is so out of control that they cannot be managed and they don't know what's good for them, the best thing that we can do is to hit them so hard that they become stunned or unconscious so that then they can be saved. I think there's something really fascinating about that, but it also reminds me of the way Jesus finds us. When Scripture says that we were so rebellious and weak, that we couldn't do anything for ourselves. I think about those moments. I think about us just paddling for dear life and in a state of trauma and panic and fear, like something we have never felt before. And how often when Jesus has reached into that place in our lives have we fought against the direction of a good and perfect and holy Christ? And we've pushed back so hard on the things that we know are actually good for us because we are just in a state of absolute sheer panic and trauma, and our fight or flight has kicked in and we are fighting. And we don't know what's good for us, and we don't know what's right for us, and we don't know what direction to go. And we are in a place where we are about to drown ourselves and all the other people around us because we are just out of our minds. This is the place where Jesus finds us. This is the place where he encounters us. Through the trauma and the mess that is our lives, in the place where we are in the most sheer panic and devastation, where we are just so afraid of the very next thing. And that analogy is so beautiful when I think about, we were too rebellious and weak. We didn't even know what was good for us. But the love of Jesus shows up and it stuns us, right? You think Paul really really wanted an encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, he was doing just fine. From an earthly standpoint, he was successful. He was a religious leader. He was an elite individual. He was rich and well respected amongst those who had power. You really think that he was looking for an encounter with Jesus? You really think that if Jesus hadn't have stunned him and put him to bed and taken his sight, you think that if that moment hadn't have happened, that he would have ever changed who he was and written half of the New Testament and shown us some of the greatest and most profound things about the character of God? No, it would have never happened. If Jesus had just kind of like appeared and tapped him on the shoulder and been like, hey man, like maybe you should try a different way. Like Jesus would have just been laughed off in that space. No, but it took a stunner. It took something crazy. It took a moment. And I think that's what makes this passage even more robust is because it is Paul writing this letter, and in the back of his mind, he's like, yeah, I was too weak and rebellious. I was crazy. God had to mess with me. And I think that's what leads on to the next part of this passage. And even if we hadn't have been so weak, we wouldn't have known what to do anyway. My buddy talks about, they'll find people who have been treading water for hours. And then when you get there, it's like, well, I didn't know what to do other than just tread this water. There are times that Jesus finds us like that too. We're not fighting. We're not rebellious. We're not hateful. We're just like, well, I didn't have another choice. So like, I was just kind of here. Even if we hadn't have been so weak, we wouldn't have known what to do anyway. That's literally what this passage says. Even if we hadn't have been weak, even if we were in the middle of the muck and the chaos and the trauma, and we were still kind of figuring it out. We were doggy paddling and we were still catching breath. Like we were going to be okay for another minute. Jesus still finds us there and goes, this is not what's best for you. And that's ultimately what this is about. It's not, can you fight through the chaos and be okay? Can you fight through the chaos and can you doggy paddle longer than anybody else? Can you keep your head above water in the mess longer than anybody else? That's not the goal. Jesus says, I came to give you life, but not just life, but life more, what? Abundant. Doggy paddling and barely keeping your head above water is not life abundant. And so sometimes Jesus shows up there and we are weak and rebellious and out of control and we have got to be stunned into our senses. And sometimes Jesus shows up into that place and we're like, no, I'm good. I got it. And Jesus is like, you don't even know what's good for you. Is this is what you wanted? This is all you wanted? You just barely surviving? This is what you want? I love this reminder at the end of this passage that we were worthy of being found. We were worthy of being pursued. We were worried. We were worthy of being the one that Jesus chased after and left the 99 for. We were worthy of that. You, my friend, were worthy of that. That while we were no use, while we were dumb sheep, and getting ourselves into all sorts of trouble and mess, finding ourselves in chaos constantly, getting ourselves hung in the thicket, getting ourselves lost in the canyon, getting ourselves surrounded by wolves, while we were useless, Jesus still thought you were worth going after. with his perfect good and consuming love. But God put his love on the line for us by offering Jesus in sacrificial death while we were no use whatever. Matters. Even in our rebellion, even in our weakness, even in our false sense of security, even when we thought we had it figured out, even when we weren't sure we had it figured out, however we were found, we were worth being found. You were worth being found. And the only thing that you had to bring to the table was just you. I want you to walk in that confidence this week, friends. I want you to remember that you are worth pursuing. That the extravagant, deep, passionate love of God is yours. And that it was given to you because God saw you fit. That's what I got for you this morning, friends. I want to encourage you with that. That you are valuable, that you are worthy of love today, right where you're at, right where you're found. So I hope that you have an incredible day. I hope that you get to celebrate today with people in your life that fill those roles and fill those gaps for you. Send some kind and sweet messages today to people who are being good moms. And remember that you're worth love today. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for the time. Don't forget midweek, Tuesday and Wednesday, 6 Central, 7 Eastern. 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Tuesday and Wednesday. Come be a part of one, be a part of both. Rick Morales leads that, does a fantastic job. It's a good conversation every single week, so go be a part of one or both of those this week on Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay? All right. Also, because we are on a new platform, if you haven't subscribed, turn those notifications on. I absolutely detest the typical YouTuber thing, but I want you to get notified when the live stream goes up. So go ahead and hit the bell and all those things. All right. I love y'all. Love God, love people passionately. No strings attached. I'll see you next week.